Welcome to this special edition of the Inspiring Women in CX podcast, a series dedicated to real talk conversations between women in customer experience and technology. This season, we're spotlighting the winners of the Inspiring Women in CX Awards 2025, trailblazing women transforming customer and employee experiences around the globe. Spanning industries, regions, and roles, their stories are powerful proof that when women lead, transformational change happens. You'll hear firsthand as they share their journeys, insights, and vision for the future of CX. I'm your host, Claire Buskett, and today we're celebrating our Culture Award winner and her work creating vibrant workplaces where empathy, inclusion, and psychological safety drive real impact. With over 25 years in life sciences and a PhD in chemistry and biochemistry, she leads global CX at SciEx, blending research expertise with leadership experience to build inclusive cultures where teams flourish. Allow me to introduce you to today's inspiring guest, Susanna Baquet. Hi, Susanna.
Hi, Claire.
Oh, I'm so happy to be recording this podcast with you today. What a moment.
Yeah.
So let's start with you. Big congratulations, Susanna. How did it feel to win the 2025 Women in CX Culture Award?
Honestly, it was such a surreal and humbling moment. So winning this award was not just a personal milestone. It felt like a recognition of the small but meaningful ways that we try to shape, the culture and the customer experience through empathy and leadership and yes, in every day, right? So, and I felt incredibly proud, not just for myself, but also for my amazing team and everyone who has inspired me along the way. It was deeply emotional too, right? Because it's an award that it's not about KPIs or metrics. It's about people, and it's creating those environments where everyone feels like included and belonging. And yeah, for me, that was very powerful.
Oh, I know. And I remember you've been obviously a member of the Inner Circle for quite a few years now. And I remember you saying that it was one of your goals to one day be on the Inspiring Women in CX podcast.
Exactly. And here I am. So I'm super happy about that too. Yeah.
Yeah. And me and Susanna, we share the same coach. So I'm sure Natalia will be watching this with such pride as well in you, Susanna. So really well done.
Oh, thank you.
So you mentioned there all the people that have inspired you along the way. Would you like to share a little bit more about who's inspired you personally and why?
Yeah, I think I'm incredibly fortunate that I've been inspired by many amazing people throughout my life. So, I would even start with my father. He was that extrovert in nature. He had this ability to connect with anyone, even like a taxi driver in a short ride. So, and I'm the opposite. I'm quite an introvert. So I always admire him for his way to have this natural charm and create these genuine connections, but also he had that desire of always helping others, right? And for me, that was kind of great. And of course, my mom, I have my aunt, and I have two sisters. They always also have been a source of inspiration. We have a lot of camaraderie and like always supporting each other, and this remind me of the power of standing together, right? So I think all starts with in the personal environment, but then also professionally. I think early in my career, when I was a scientist, my PhD mentor, she was also very inspirational. She didn't only kind of push me to succeed, but she always kind of challenged me. But she taught me that excellence isn't just about individual achievement, but it's about collaboration and lifting others while you rise. And she showed me also the power of building very strong teams. So surrounding yourself with the best people, not being afraid of that they will compete with you, but the other way around. If you have the best team, the best people around you, that's a success for everyone. And yeah, and later in my career, I have a lot of people who inspire me, like yourself, or as you said, Natalia as my coach, right? and my partner in life. So he's my biggest supporter and cheerleader. And he's always there and believes in me on everything I do. So that gave me that kind of confidence also to continue thriving. And actually, when he found out that I was a finalist for this award, he was the first saying, "Oh, yes, you're going to win it." And I said, "Oh, well, there are very strong candidates there. So I feel already kind of proud of being a finalist." Like he said, no, tell me which day, but I know you're going to win it." So,
Oh, that's so lovely. Oh, wow. And I can, hear
yeah.
so much about why you deserve to have been the winner of this award in so many of the things that you even mentioned there. You talked about sisterhood, you talked about collaboration over competition, you talked about lifting others as they rise. And like he was absolutely right. You deserve to win that award, and it was a really standout entry. So thinking about your LinkedIn announcement post, and in that you said that the award reflects your mission to live and breathe every day, to champion a culture of customer centricity that's grounded in empathy, inclusion, and purpose. Can you tell us a little more about why you think empathy and inclusion are fundamental to customer experience success?
Absolutely. So for me, empathy and inclusion aren't just values, right? For me, there are non-negotiables when it comes to creating a culture and meaningful customer experiences. So empathy really allows us to see and understand the people that we serve. If we talk about customers, and not just looking at them as data points or personas, but as really individuals with their unique needs, their emotions, and context. So I think leading with empathy helps you to design experience that really resonate at a human level. And for me, that's what really makes the real connection and builds loyalty at the end. But then inclusion, I think this takes this even further, right? It's about making everyone feeling seen, heard, and valued, no matter, not just the majority, not just the kind of 80-20 rule, not just the easy to support kind of customers. I think an inclusive CX approach ensures that you design for this diversity, for accessibility, of course, but also for equity. And it challenges us to actually listen deeply and remove those barriers. But barriers not only from a technical perspective or digital, but actually cultural barriers and even the systemic barriers that we have in our environment. So I truly believe that when empathy and inclusion are embedded into the CX culture, they create a ripple effect across the teams, but also across the products and across the brand perception overall. And that's where this purpose-driven innovation can really happen. And that's the kind of impact that I want to be part of it every day.
Well, obviously, I wholeheartedly agree with you. And I think a lot of what we see now in terms of CX content is quite a departure from empathy and inclusion, isn't it? As you said, thinking about customers as data points that can be analyzed. And for me, like, we need both, don't we? Like, how do we leverage technology and data? But like you said, having a real clear purpose and intention around the human aspects of customer experience are critical. And I wholeheartedly agree. Inclusion really is at the heart of all of that. So thinking about how this award recognises your role in shaping culture where people can truly thrive, leading with vulnerability is a particularly important and powerful part of that, but it's really not that easy. So could you share a little bit more, or perhaps an example about how showing your vulnerability as a leader has helped to build trust, connection, and positive change within your organisation culture, and the impact that that has made?
Sure. So, for me, one of the most meaningful ways that actually helped share that culture was coming from a very personal place, right? So a few years ago, I underwent a radical hysterectomy after a long time disease. And as a result, of course, I got into sudden menopause, right? And for me, it was a life-changing experience, not only physically and emotionally, but also mentally. And not something that I was expecting to talk publicly, and even less at work, right? But then I realized that if I was feeling isolated, confused, or even overwhelmed, surely others might be too. So I made the decision to speak openly about my journey, but not just the medical side that everyone knew because I was, of course, on medical leave for some time, but actually the emotional piece and my mental kind of health piece. And let me tell you, it wasn't easy, that there is still that stigma around women's health and especially in the
Yes,
workplace.
absolutely.
So, but that vulnerability really turned out to be very powerful. What happened blew me away because, of course, I started with my team, but then also in other areas within the company. I even made it publicly in LinkedIn, and a lot of, my team, of course, was kind of very supportive and kind of start opening it up, but also other colleagues, just men and women, not only women, started reaching out and share their own kind of stories and kind of saying thank you for sharing them, and stories related to also emotional experiencers or some mental health and other invisible illnesses that like burnout, right? And many more that people don't usually talk about. So I think that moment of openness sparked a cultural shift, and I wasn't the only one, but I know that kind of made others and other leaders actually to follow through, and we made changes at a company level, not as kind of policies, but yes, much more focus on well-being and mental health and creating those safe spaces. Because yes, if you kind of lead with this empathy and honesty and openness, this builds trust in a real way, right? So, and trust is the foundation for a thriving culture. So yes, vulnerability is tough, but I think it's one of the most courageous and transformative tools that we have as leaders.
Absolutely agree. I'm thinking of Brené Brown and her books now, and kind of the opposite side of vulnerability, shame, isn't it? And particularly around mental health, women's health, anything related to like kind of hormones and how they affect women. There is so much stigma and shame attached around all of that. But it does take, I think, visible leadership, talking about these things, making it okay to be vulnerable, and making it okay to, I guess, like challenge the status quo, and to encourage a collective desire to change that is such an amazing and powerful thing. So just you're awesome, Susanna. Wow. And held space for so many others. And obviously now, like, as the leader of an all-women community, the number of women I know that were impacted with a very similar sudden hysterectomy, instant menopause outcome. I know more than one or two. I know multiple figures of women that have experienced that, but turning that into something that changed culture within your organisation is just completely admirable. So yes, well done. Thank you on behalf of all women everywhere.
Sorry to interrupt your listening, but I just wanted to take a moment to tell you a little bit more about Wix. We're the world's first online membership community for women in customer experience. Our mission is clear, and that's to unleash the power of women to lead the future of human-centred business. Working in CX can feel lonely at times. We're often single-handedly trying to change the way organisations think and behave about customers. On our paid platform, you can discover a vibrant tribe of fellow female professionals, find support from knowledgeable peers, learn best practices from experts and practitioners, and be inspired to up your game through leading-edge CX and EX thinking. If you feel like you aren't making enough progress with your CX objectives, are unsure about what your next move looks like, or struggling to achieve your career ambitions, you're not alone. To learn more about membership, see how women are progressing personally and professionally with the support of the #1 community in CX, you can apply to join us today by visiting www.womenincx.community/membership. I really hope I get to see you there soon.
Oh, So I think what we've really touched on there is psychological safety, isn't it? And that's something that the judges were particularly impressed by in your entry and the way that you described it, not just as an abstract kind of value, but as something that you actually operationalized. Can you tell us more about how you did that and the difference that it's made?
Yeah, so I'm really glad that the judges kind of pick up on that, because for me, psychological safety is something that I'm incredibly passionate about. And I believe it has to go beyond like posters in the wall or values that we have in a slide deck, because I mean, everyone talks about psychological safety, right? So for me, what it means is creating a culture where people feel safe to speak up and ask questions, but also challenge ideas. But at the same time, admit mistakes, because there is always this kind of fear of judgment or consequences. So you need to take this out of the plate, and and you need to be intentional in doing so, right? For me, it really starts how we lead. I mean, I made my point about this vulnerability and actually showing that, but it's also to consistently invite feedback, but not just saying so for the sake of saying so, but then really being intentional in asking for feedback, but also admit when we don't have all the answers, and then genuinely listen, because that sounds simple, but when people see a leader doing that regularly, really listening, really saying, okay, I don't have the answer, what do you think about it, or asking for feedback, it really sets the tone for everyone else. I think we also built, and it started with my team, my kind of sub-organization, this psychological safety into the ways of working. So for example, in team meetings, we always start with a check-in, right? So that invites like honestly saying exactly, how are you? I mean, and then not say, oh, well, fine. So no, if someone says, I don't know, or I need help or whatever, fine. But we start the meeting with that. So to kind of set it up and everyone feels safe to say so. And then we go to the subject and things, maybe we park on more conversations around that. And I think we need to have these reflection points at the beginning, but also when we complete a big project, we also have these kind of reflection points, not only on the outcomes of the project, but also how people felt during the process, right? How do you feel not only about the achievement, but how it went through all these kind of months of going through that process, and how can we do things differently in the future if the feelings were not as expected, right? And at the end is also, it has to be this accountability. So we introduced questions in our engagement and poll surveys to the employees, and as leaders we follow through with actions if we kind of understand that people is not safe to speak up, or they don't feel kind of this psychological safety. So we actually have it, and we had initially like yearly surveys. Now we have them quarterly, just as pulses, right? So I think the impact has been profound. I've seen teams take more kind of initiatives, right? So not kind of staying silent or not challenging the status quo, or not bringing their ideas to the table. So for me, that's foundational, and it has to be embedded into the fabric of how leaders actually lead, and how we communicate and how we make decisions, and then this can transform the culture. But I think it's small things altogether, but with a very high, I would say we need to kind of aim for high, not just stay, okay, as I said, like these check-ins that sound like, how are you today? Well, I'm fine. No, I hate this. When someone says, I'm fine, said, okay, so you're kind of feeling good. Are you ready? Or did you have a good sleep? If it's early in the morning, So we don't kind of stay at the surface.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just thinking, like, quite often that question's so performative, isn't it? In conversation, how are you? Yeah, I'm fine. Okay, now let's go to business. But like actually genuinely caring about how are you, or even how you say that, like it can come across in such a different way, can't it? And like the commercial business benefits are so clear, aren't they? A happy, productive team delivers better outcomes. A team that feels safe to challenge the status quo leads to greater innovation. But the actual
Exactly.
creation of a psychologically safe space does require actually genuinely caring about the people and their experience too. So let's bring this towards a close now. So thinking about, you've been recognized for creating a culture where people feel seen, heard and valued. What does culture mean to you personally? And what do you think most organizations get wrong about it?
Yeah, for me, culture is not like the slogan or whatever HR can put in a wall, right? For me, it's about how people feel when they show up every day at work, right? It's that lived experience. And the way I would define the culture is the collective energy that we create together. So is that energy that can either lift people up or hold them back. So that's why it's so important that it's made purposely based on this kind of human empathy, inclusion, and belonging and connection. So when we think about building a culture, I think about creating that space where, as you said, people feel seen for who they are in their diversity and diverse perspectives. They feel also heard for what they believe, right? And what they can bring to the table, but also they feel valued for what they contribute, not only for what they deliver on a spreadsheet in a project, right? So when you have these kind of elements, then you kind of build that culture, as I said, as a shared experience. And I think that many organizations get it wrong because they start, either they think that culture belongs to HR and it's like a top down initiative, that it's kind of a directive. This is how our culture is and this is where we are. So I agree, we need to have some shared values, but the culture is not defined only by those shared values, right? So and also in other companies I've seen that is like a one-time initiative. So let's have a big workshop and discuss about our culture. I mean, this is so wrong. I mean, it can be a starting point if you don't know who you are as a company or as a culture, but I think this is not what culture is kind of built. And then, yes, in other occasions, some companies just focus on programs, right? So programs to drive the culture or the values or whatever, but without taking into consideration the deeper emotional experience of work. I mean, for me, the culture is how, as I said, how you experience it every day, all this emotional part, because people want to be trusted also, not only trust, but be trusted, and they want to belong. And this only happens when you kind of build that culture based on leaders and managers that with intention, I mean, lead with empathy and with the real commitment to inclusion and making people feel that they belong. So I truly believe that at the end, culture is built in these micro moments. So it's how we celebrate things, how we respond to failure, right? So how we handle difficult conversations. And yeah, and then I think if you kind of get it right and create that space, that it's safe, that people feel heard, listened, valued, yes, that's what kind of culture means to me.
I love that. And listening to you, I think the word that springs to my mind is authenticity.
Exactly.
Is what makes the difference. So, something that's performative, it's a program, it's got touch points and measurement isn't necessarily authentic if it's not backed up by the way people behave and make decisions on a daily basis, right?
Exactly.
And absolutely, I think, when you talk about that inclusion, enabling people to show up as their true selves in an authentic way and to feel welcome and valued for who they are, that to me is also what culture is about as well. Oh, you're a shining light out there, Susanna. I've really, really loved this conversation today. And I'm just so proud to see you crown this year's winner. So to leave the audience on one final note, if you could give one piece of advice to someone building a customer-centered, more human-centered culture at work, what would that be?
Say, start with your people and lead with empathy. So you can create this customer-centered culture when employees feel like seen and valued first. You need to make sure that your people feel kind of safe, supported, also empowered to be human at work, to be their authentic selves, as you said, right? And then that energy naturally flows also to the customers, for example. So for me, the first thing to build a culture is that leaders, they should be asking themselves, what do my people need to feel like they truly belong here, right? So, because when people belong and they believe, is when then extraordinary things happen. So for the business and also for the customers. So start with your people and how make them feel proud of being working every day, but also valued and belonging to the organization and the culture.
Love that. I was just thinking of one example. If I can also leave one piece of advice, just to build on that, is about really truly listening at the start. And one example springs to mind of a client that I worked with a while ago, which was to even define as a leadership team, what do we think our culture actually is? And then asking the employees at management and frontline level what they think it is, and then seeing the variation between what the leadership think the culture is and what the management and the frontline think it is, and being able to interrogate that as a starting point, it can be quite often very telling. So thank you so much for your time today, Susanna. Huge congratulations again. Very worthy winner. Your husband was absolutely right. And I think anyone who doesn't already follow Susanna on LinkedIn, you absolutely must, because she does publish content all the time talking about culture, inclusion, and sharing more insight about how she makes this happen. That's it. We're done, Susanna.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I will see you all on the next episode. Bye for now. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Inspiring Women in CX Award Winners podcast with me, Claire Muscat. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review, share your thoughts, or pass it along to your network. It really helps us to grow and amplify the voices of women working in CX and technology. And if you haven't already, don't forget to like and subscribe. The bigger our community, the greater the impact we can make together. That's all for now. See you next time.